Well, hi there. Uh, YouTube Live. It's the easiest way I can do a quick little, I guess, an update or a review on a product without getting too overly complicated with kind of gear and equipment. I'm basically using a good old-fashioned Blue Yeti mic, which is, I think, 4 years old, and I've got myself hooked up to a wonderful um, PlayStation 3 camera. So again, it looks okay. So it's just from that standpoint. So I do apologize for the technical end of it. It's not the best out there as far as that's concerned, but it gets the job done. So let's go ahead and talk about what we were up to this week. So I've got a little bit of an unboxing video. That's exciting. That's kind of, I think, old school in today's internet. Let's have a little look. So I've got a tracking device on my Outlander. So the first vehicle I picked up for Turo is coming up to almost 2 months. So, and I bought that right out of the gate. Kind of one of those things. I took the advice from some of the YouTubers that do Turo, and they said it's probably a good idea. I went with what we would describe as a non-fleet service. So it's about $10 a month for me from that standpoint. There's no contract attached to it. I could get it cheaper, but the idea is that I wanted to do Turo for 6 months and kind of see where I would be at. So I don't want to get locked into a 1-year contract or have to go through the paperwork, administrative stuff to get rid of that from that standpoint. So this is why I've gone to a consumer product, and I did a little research as far as what's out there. This one seems to be pretty stable as far as the service that they provide. It's not full featured, so in other words, I can't turn the vehicle off. And to be honest with you, I think liability-wise, I think I have issues with that. And to the most part, I'm not worried about recovering my vehicle in the event it gets stolen. Like it's a nice feature to have on there. I don't think that's the one that I want. It's basically just for security or peace of mind for me. So if let's say I get a call and I'm told, hey, your vehicle's broken down, instead of having to go through the rigmarole and go, okay, well, where are you located and all that, I can just key it on my phone and go, okay, I know where you are. I can take care of it from that standpoint. That's why I wanted to put a tracking system on. The other one is just comfort. So if it's your first time out in Turo, which is my first time, I just want to get an idea where my vehicle is. And I thought I'd be really obsessive about it, but I'm not. In other words, I've had my Outlander out now for 2 weeks. I've checked 3 times just to confirm that it's still in Ontario, right? You know what I mean? Like, so it's not really that big of an issue for me. And it's strange because when I did check, it's in the surrounding area of where I am. So it hasn't really migrated anywhere. So it's one of those things where I went, okay, that's a pretty nice little rental from that standpoint. Again, I've got no control on where they go with the vehicle. It just gives me a little heads up to go, okay, I know where it is. Which is kind of nice. So let's take a look. So Amazon sent this one out in record speed. So I ordered it, I think at when I finished work. So it was like 10 a.m. in the morning, maybe 9:30, and it showed up at 3 o'clock that day. So this is one of those things where I don't really need this one right now because I still have some issues with my with the Cruze. I'm waiting on some parts, and the part sources seem to be an issue when it comes to timelines. So I think that's just the nature of the beast right now. But this came, as I said, super fast. So we're going to do an install, and this is, again, it's not a fleet design. So in other words, it's not the one that you'd wire into your vehicle permanently. This one is kind of the one you'd have if you wanted to catch your kids speeding or doing something like that, along that lines, or you just wanted to throw it in the back of your truck so you know where your cap is, that type of thing. I think it's one step above the Apple product. I just think with how it's built. So I guess you could use the Apple if you wanted to. I just thought this was a better route for me. So we've got here, and again, I've mentioned this before, it's the Salin 11 4G GPS tracking system. This uses a cellular service for its functionality. So as long as they're within a cellular range, which is anywhere in Canada pretty much, I should be able to track the vehicle, which is great. Again, it's got some little paperwork that comes with it. We're going to fire on some reading glasses because it is what it is. So it gives you a little support card, which is nicely laminated. So that one there, if you want to put I've already got the app on my phone, but you can do it through here, which is pretty easy. The app was really simple on Android to set up, and it's the only real drawback to it is it is kind of a little bit, I guess, OCD in its reporting. So you can set it up to report every 15 seconds where the vehicle is, and it would slowly drive you insane. So I don't know why you'd want that. I guess if you're tracking it and you wanted to be able to catch it, I guess that would be where you do that. I've got it on like a 15-minute, and it only really gives me a chime or a reminder when it's kind of out of my region of 250 kilometers. So again, it's not so I have an issue there as far as tracking the customer. I'm not really that concerned about that. I just want to make sure, generally speaking, where the vehicle is. It also gives me a little heads up on, I set the speed limitation, not on the vehicle, but on this system. So it'll give me a heads up if they're gone 20 kilometers over the speed limit. I'm not policing that. So it's not like I'm calling them up and saying, hey, at least I haven't at this point, as far as that's concerned. So again, it gives you a little run through based on your country on how to install the little SIM card and what it's all about. Again, that's for your cellular service. Quick starting, again, it gives you everything there that you need on the box itself. So don't throw out the packaging. There's a reference code for it. It was on the last one. Maybe it's on there it is. So it's going to have a little reference code when you go in and to sign up. So you're going to need that little barcode there and the barcode number. So don't chuck the box. Hang on to them in case you want to, I don't know, cancel them and sell them or transfer them out. This one here was on sale. So the last one cost me, I think, 32 or 28. This one was on sale for 24. So watch the sales, because I think as they get close to the end of the month, they go down a little bit. So packaging wise, it's pretty solid. So it's like a little plastic brick. Mine is, at least one of my Outlander, doesn't get a lot of wear because I've installed it inside the vehicle. So this would normally have a magnet to it, so you can plug it onto the bottom of the vehicle. It doesn't usually fall off. It's pretty strong from that standpoint. Yeah, pretty strong. So the magnet's good on that. And again, what I like to do, or at least based on my activity on the last one, so it's got its little USB-C and it's got its little USB regular connector, right? So I'm not super technical, so I apologize for that, but we'll give you a quick little breakdown. So I go out to my wonderful little dollar store, so the Dollarama, which I like shopping at because it's what I describe as predictable quality at a reasonable price. There is Dollar Tree as well. You can get these at Dollar Tree, but I think they're just a little bit too cheap. So I think they're $2 at Dollar Tree. This one in Canada was $4.50. Tech One, which I probably could have bought off of Amazon for cheaper. It's one of those things I forgot completely, so I gapped on it. So we bought one and a bag of chips, right? So what are you going to do? So this one I use to plug this little guy in. So we got the cable there. And then that little cable goes to here. And then this little guy, which I'll probably show later when I'm actually in the car. Maybe I'll do an install video. That would be kind of a nice little item from that standpoint. Then I picked up a 10-foot extension cord. And it is for plugging in a cooler or a TV or some piece of equipment while you're camping. This one I got from Restore. It's like a thrift shop full of wonderful household stuff. So if you're ever going through a community with a Restore, it is a charity run. So it's good supporting that. So you never know what you're going to come across. A lot of times it's things like these little obsolete connectors and various other little oddball stuff. So this was $1. This is going to plug into this harness. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of a heat shield. Well, not heat shield, heat shrink. We're going to put the heat shrink on top of it. Basically make it water, not proof, but a little less likely to get some water damage. Now this little guy is going to go into either one of the side panels in one of the doors, or it's going to go behind the dashboard, or it's going to go in the spare tire, or it could go under the hood. It's kind of a bit of a mystery there from that standpoint. But it's one of those things that once we have this set up, this is designed to hold a charge for about almost 2 months. 70 days is kind of what they rate it at. So at 70 days, I'm not that worried about it from that standpoint, but I'm a forgetful little guy. And I'm using these cars exclusively for Turo. So they're not getting a lot of personal use other than running around and washing them. What I'm going to do is just leave it there, and then it will trickle charge via the vehicle with these little items stacked together. And I don't really have to worry about it too much. So it's one of those things where someone goes for an hour drive, this is topped right back up, not an issue. Very simple from that standpoint. Technology wise, I think once it's actually out of the weather, like they are built to take a fair bit of abuse from what I understand. But again, you've got spots where the water can intrude. So where you have your little seals right here where you plug stuff in. So if you got it kind of in the wheel well, and you got salt and salt water and brine, which is what we throw on the roads, this probably isn't going to be enough to stop that from getting into this. So it's one of those things where I look at it kind of go, tuck it someplace clean, under the hood. It's pretty good. Keep away from heat. In a door is fine. And then you can draw the power off of the door circuit. Or the other one is you do it under the dashboard. You can put it through the auxiliary. So it's pretty easy from that standpoint. Finding something to tap into power-wise in the car is fairly easy. This is a really low draw, so you're not have to worry about anything along that line. Like technically, you could take it off of the overhead light if you wanted to. Like really, it's easy to do, and we'll show you that later. So we'll probably do an install video, probably next week. Now, my original goal was to try and get that Chevy Cruze up and running and on Turo in 10 days. Unfortunately, the wonderful world of locating parts and getting it in for a safety has been a bit of a hurdle. So doing the work hasn't been a problem. It's getting the components. So I got a thermostat, and the folks at Amazon sent me a second one. I don't know why that is. So they duplicated the order. So I've got another return. So I'm going to say that for whatever reason, you stumble across a part or a component, you kind of go, clearly it's not an Amazon product. It's probably like a power seller or something like that. They just seem weird. If it's not out of the warehouse, it is just strange. So, and we got the other one to return as well. So we got the original one that wasn't the correct part. We've got a correct part to return, and then I've got the part that came originally is gone. Now I threw out the used part because I really didn't see anything there as far as anything major to show. But I'll give you a little idea. So I'm going to say nicely packaged, regular cardboard box, pretty decent. Little bubble wrap, nothing too major. So this one here, you can see how I got memorized just by looking at the sheer shininess of the whole thing. It is pretty impressive as far as that's concerned. This is about $40. So the OEM one in plastic is $127. I think I priced it out through one of the local dealers. So for $42 for stepping away from the plastic component. So this one should technically outlast the car, I'm going to assume. Another little item that they did, which I kind of like. Well, you got your little seal there, which is to be honest with you, this little guy is annoying. So if you're going to install it, take a little Vaseline to it just so it gets stuck in there. That's kind of a trade secret. I guess I probably shouldn't share that. So yeah, little bit of Vaseline in the actual gasket area just to kind of give it that little suction to hold, and it'll take care of that. Otherwise, when I was installing the one that I had before, this little guy would pop out as you're trying to tighten down the bolts. And it was annoying to position. So it's kind of like just a little dab, and it kind of acts like a little adhesive. And then once it warms up, it just goes away. Like it's not going to cause any issues. The old school thermostat is right here. So if you're an old guy and you go, well, that's what the thermostat looks like. So it's nothing complicated. Like it's the same as it would be on an old Cavalier or an old anything really. It's just a regular old thermostat. But the trick that they did is they put a little preheater. This is a little preheater. And in the OEM one, it's integrated. So it's one piece into here, whereas on the aftermarkets, on both of them, you can actually remove the heater element, and you can actually buy this piece separately if you had to. So, but it's one of those things where if you're going to do that, I think the heater element, because I thought maybe it would be replaceable in the OEM one. You can get an aftermarket one for about $17. So for an extra $15, you're into a brand new piece. So it's one of those things where you kind of back and forth debatable, right? And of course, then you have the extra little hose that you got to hook into, which is, I guess, a variation on my Cruze, because it's the turbo, or I don't know what it is, 1.4 liter. So some of them don't have this. So it's one of those things where you might get one like I did without the little side hose. So just be aware of it. Super annoying proprietary hose that you have to snap into position here. So you see there's a little ridge. Don't know why they've done that. It's made out of plastic. So clearly that's going to be a problem down the road for me. I'm going to assume it's a proprietary hose, which means it's worth probably about $160. That wouldn't surprise me. So there's probably an aftermarket version of it out there. But I found that odd, to be honest with you, without having a clamp. And the other one, the little guy here, goes with the old school. So it's not like I don't know why. It's not like they didn't go with a new innovative proprietary style on this, and then they went with an innovative proprietary style on that. I don't know why they did that. Two different things. I think maybe it's a 45-degree change, but I've seen cars out there with the same type of design that use a regular bent hose. So that's got to go back to Amazon, but I thought I'd share that. And so far, I've got the code to clear. So that's nice. But the dilemma is it has a bit of a vacuum noise. And I think a lot of Cruzes do. You probably don't pick up on it until it's a problem. So there is a little, here we go. So there's a little gap, well, not a little membrane, little rubber membrane that goes into the valve cover. Now, usually you'd have to replace the entire valve cover to replace this one piece. They sell them on Amazon for $11. So you get a cap, and you get a spring, and you get the membrane itself. I bought this because I do have a vacuum issue, and it's not coming up with a code or anything on that line, but the PCV valve is stuck in the open position. So when I go and actually close that off, my vacuum problem disappears. So it's not this. This is fine. But I bought this because I didn't want to spend the $65 to replace what I think is a cover that is probably 10,000 kilometers, 15,000 kilometers old. The previous owner clearly replaced this because of that problem. And it may have reduced the issue, but it's still there. And again, just tracking back, it turns out to be the BCV valve, and it's built into the intake itself. So the problem with that is I have to order it through Amazon. They don't do next day on that, so it's clearly getting shipped in from out of the country. But it's $137 plus tax, or about $160 on it, for what I would probably describe as a part that should be about $3, maybe $4 as a standalone. But because it's built into the intake, it's going to be $150. So again, that's proprietary parts. It's one of those things where I could probably leave the car well enough alone and just go, because it's not throwing off any codes at this point. But the way I see it is, since I have the car here anyways, and it's not really on Turo yet, I'm going to just bump my schedule and say, okay, well, instead of doing it in 10, which was kind of an optimistic goal, I'll just try and get it done for the 5th or the 6th of the month, throw an extra 5 days on it. It's coming in reportedly on the 30th. So fingers are crossed that's October. And it looks like it's about a 4-hour to a 3-hour job to do. So I'm going to do that in the driveway. It looks easy. It's a few bolts and clean a few components and transferring a few things over. It looks just monotonous and time consuming. It doesn't look difficult. So that's why I'm going to do it now. And then I don't have to worry about it. It's one of those things where I send the car out. It'll probably be in December. Someone will have it for a Christmas break to run up to visit the folks or to do a run around town. The next thing you know, their check engine light has come on. When you try to explain to them that it's probably something really minor, some folks get they're really concerned about that, because it's just one of those things, right? So I just want to make sure that it's going out. Check engine light's not going to come on, so that little valve is going to be replaced. And the car's got 150K on it. It's the original one, so it's probably due anyways. So it's one of those things where I'm just going to do it. It's not that expensive. finish it off, right? Now, I'm going to throw the snow tires on. It's coming up to it's end of October, so November is usually when you start throwing snow tires onto the car. So I'll do that at the same time. At that point, I'm going to check the brakes, and I may order in pads and rotors, and I'm probably going to anyways, and just do them so that it's done. I'm not seeing anything in the records of the car for brakes being completed. So I'm going to assume the ones that are on there have to be at least 20,000 to maybe 40,000 kilometers, which if you're doing local driving and you're not on the 401, which is what we're up here, and you're doing 80 kilometers all day long, and you don't really stop that much, they could be perfectly fine as far as that's concerned. It's usually applications that wear them down. But it's one of those things where if I have it and I priced out the brakes, if I go onto eBay, strange as this sounds, it's cheaper there for a Canadian to buy brake work as far as brake components. Amazon, it's about 20% more or 30% more for the same brakes. So I'm just going to order them off of eBay, and I'm going to try and find a set that are coated. Again, they're usually a little more money, but when you get brake pads that have got a coating on them, in other words, essentially they put a little bit of a zinc spray onto it, and it's electroplated onto it, so it gets into everywhere. Because of that, they don't tend to warp as much, especially if they sit for a period of time. Main reason being is they don't rust. They will rust on the surface, but they won't rust internally where the little air vents are, or the backside. So the backside won't get stuck to the wheel bearing or the hub. So it's an easier item to work on. Most folks don't. It's not that most folks don't know. It's most folks don't get pitched at the desk to say, hey, you know what, for an extra 10, 15 bucks, which is usually the normal case on it, you can go to something that's got a coating, which if you're in a Rust Belt, Southern Ontario, or actually, even if you're not in a Rust Belt, if you're in lovely California and you got humidity, it just means that those brakes are probably going to last the life of the car. You just service them. The rotors will probably be decent. Up here, it's a little more different because, again, rust and corrosion, but it's one of those things that if I'm going to have the vehicle out anyways and it adds an extra $30 and I'm doing the labor, I'm not that concerned about that. So I'll just put the better part on. Same thing with brake pads. I usually go with a midline, so I don't go bottom end. I go middle of the road. But the middle of the road ones wear reasonably well. The other one is that they tend not to make the noise. So you go cheap, they tend to squeal a little bit. Go really high end, what happens is they tend to wear the actual rotor down a little bit. So you go middle of the road, they're a little bit softer, they work well, they grip. It's just one of those things I've noticed on beater cars and lower end cars. Don't go top of the line, go middle, and usually you're going to be quite happy. So that's what I've been up to as far as last couple of days of the week. Got my insurance in, so they sent the paperwork out, and that's from my broker at Economical, which I think they've got the insurance wrong again. But what are you going to do? So again, they never really go over it over the phone, which I find really annoying. So I just said mirror the coverage on my last vehicle, and frustrating from that standpoint. So again, my insurance is coming up for renewal, which gives you an opportunity to go out and do a little shopping without having to worry about what's remaining, what's due. So I'm going to go out and find a nice local broker and have a sit-down conversation and just explain, look, I'm new on Turo. We've been doing it now for 2 months. I had it set up at the other place, which I thought was pretty reasonable. Now I've got a new broker in the brokerage who seems to just doesn't have a clue. So again, if you're going to go out and start Turo, which it's up to you. It's one of those things I thought would be a nice little hobby or a side hustle. It's not really a side hustle from that standpoint. So far, I haven't really made any money because I haven't really paid off any of the bills I put out. But it's one of those things that I look at, kind of go, I like cars. I like tinkering on cars. I like fixing them. So I thought, well, I'll go Turo a try, and we'll just see how that works. And if it works out really well, then maybe it leads to a fleet of cars. Maybe that leads to a snowball effect of just seeing something grow and maintain and continue, right? So that was the idea there, just to kind of see what would happen from that standpoint. So that's why I'm giving myself 6 months. So again, we're into 2, and so far I'm pretty happy with the 2 months. The first was a little slow, second's picked up a little bit. I didn't intend to go and get another car. I was going to wait to that 6 month point and then go get a little RVR to add to the Outlander. So one size smaller on the SUV. So I'd have a 7-passenger and a 5-passenger regular little SUV that's designed for better fuel mileage and a few other little things. Plus, I think it looks cool. I think the 2013 through 2015 model looks a little bit like a Rally Art or the Lancer product. It's got that little grill to it. It just looks, it's a good, nicely styled car. So I thought that'd be a nice replacement or addition if I decide to get out of Turo at that point and move to either selling the vehicles or keeping them for myself. I'd be happy with that car. Like it looks nice. But this one, the Cruze came up when I was doing a little searching on the old local Kijiji, and I thought, well, that's a good deal on it. And I thought it was undervalued on book. And when I went to look at it, I was anticipating to walk away and go, no, it's a wreck. It's not worth buying. But then looking at it, going for a little drive, I thought, well, it's not at that tail end of life. So it's one of those things where what I'm doing now, like for instance, the thermostat and the little preheater, and then going in and repairing some of the plastic bits and just replacing the intake manifold and doing a basic little tune-up and a few other little things to get the car kind of back up to a standard. That's nothing outlandish. That's just regular maintenance at a car that's about 140, 150,000 kilometers. Doing brakes, it's not something you'd write a car off of. So it's one of those things where I look at it kind of go, I paid okay money. I paid okay money for it. I've got a little bit of a margin there if I need to sell it. So, and then by going and saying, okay, I'm going to sell it in 6 months, that might be the case. I can look and go, well, 6 months ago, I put new brakes and they're the good ones. I put new pads. They're the good ones. I did the thermostat. It's got the intake gasket. Those are known issues. I've gone over the turbo. The turbo housing looks crack-free. It does look a little weathered, but it's still functional. So it's one of those things where I don't think it's going to crack now. It would have already. So I think it's fine from that standpoint. So those are the known problems on that car. And when I did a little check on the valve train looks nice and tidy. So there's no issues there. Did a little check on the transmission fluids. Fluids are fine. In fact, it's been recently serviced and the lines have been changed. So I look at that, and the combustion corrosion on the car itself it's a little bit under the undercarriage, but it's surface. So it's nothing too big to be concerned about. And I'm going to send it off to one of the local little Mennonites, little farmers do oiling on heavy duty equipment, and they'll do private vehicles kind of on the side, given time. You have to leave it there for them. I'll probably end up doing that, and it's probably $150 to have the thing coated to living bejeebus, so it's like slippery. I'll probably get better fuel mileage as it breaks through the wind because it'll be properly lubricated on the undercarriage. I don't know, but it's one of those things where it'll stop the rust like there. And typically what they do is they're using a congealed or a gelled oil. So what they're doing is they're pulling it off the old industrial machines that they're working on, and then they end up working their magic, and then it becomes a spray or like a tar, and it covers everything. It does a really nice job. I've done it on a couple of my vehicles, and it's extended the life of them to the point where I wasn't getting rid of them because of rust damage or corrosion. I was getting rid of them because of the end of life. That's a component had failed, engine was gone, or things along that line. So it's one of those things where if you're living in an area that throws a lot of road salt down, and we're right beside Goderich, and Goderich is a wonderful world of salt because they have a salt mine, so it's fairly affordable. Locally, it's not a huge thing to grab a big bag of salt. You're good financially. It's not going to break the bank. So clearly, every little town here just loads up, and they don't even think twice about the expense of it. They just dump it because it doesn't really cost very much, and it keeps the roads dry. You know what I mean? Like it serves a purpose, but in this area, it does really beat the living daylights out of the undercarriage. If you're in the GTA or Hamilton or Toronto, they use a road brine, a spray, and they're very sparing on that because it's expensive. And they do that for infrastructure issues. They want to make sure that the bridges don't get covered in salt because a lot of them are built with rebar and cement, which doesn't really complement that well. So up here it's asphalt and a couple little bridges. So it's not a big deal to use salt. So that's why you see that up in this neck of the woods. So that'll go up for that. And once that's all done, then it'll go for a safety check. And again, I'm just working it like it's the last safety. I'm just making sure that everything is functional and works, lights, brakes, heater, wipers, doors will open, windows will go down. I don't know what the new safety is all about, but I'm thinking to myself, it can't be beyond what a car would be originally OEM. I'm not adding anything to it. I'm just making sure everything's functional. So I think I'm going to be happy with that one. So we'll see. We'll give a report as far as how the safety process is, as far as the new one is concerned. Working on topics. So I think I might do a little run through. We talked earlier about what cars to buy as far as mechanics and features on them. I might do another one where we actually list off brands, or I might actually do car reviews. I haven't decided from that standpoint. Love your input. So if you're out there and going, yeah, it would be nice to see a little review on, let's say, a Mazda 2, which I think is a pretty common Turo vehicle, at least from doing my little search and seeing what's out there. It would appear that Chevy Cruzes are a pretty common Turo vehicle as well. So that's I'm going to do a review on that and just see how it is as far as that's concerned. And looks like there's a couple other things out there that are pretty common. So I might go ahead and just do these are like the top 5 common cars found on Turo in Canada or in Southern Ontario, and give a breakdown. And the way I would break that down would be maintenance cost, depreciation rates, insurance, which you got to watch as far as that's concerned. I was very surprised on how much my little Chevy is compared to my Outlander. As strange as it sounds, my Outlander is cheaper to insure. So they're same year. Outlander's an SUV, little mid-sized compact car. You would think would be cheaper. It's not. So it's one of those. It's not. They're not like night and day, but I was surprised that there is a subtle that it wasn't cheaper than that. That kind of threw me a little bit. So we might talk about insurance categories and things along that line coming up in videos. Again, this is just a quick little overview of what I've been up to and kind of a recap for the week and kind of go from there. We're coming close to the end of the month as well. So maybe I'll do a little sit down and talk about numbers and kind of say, okay, this is where we're at. This is what's come in. This is what's gone out. A lot more has gone out than come in. So we have to see if that's going to continue. Which case that might be the factor in 6 months to say, hey, you know what? By the time you do maintenance and get everything up to snuff, maybe 6 months is not enough time to pay those things out through Turo. Maybe you need to run the car for a year. And that might be the case. That might be a discussion coming up in a little while. So again, thank you very much for checking out my live content. Again, I try to keep this around 30 minutes or so. I might do some longer content down the road, but to be honest with you, the views that I get, I think 30 minutes is kind of a top off for it. If you've got an idea, if you're running Turo and you kind of go, you know what, no one's really covered this topic, or there's a point of view on that, I'd love a comment as far as that's concerned. And again, if you could subscribe, that would be wonderful. The more subscribers I get, I think I'm up to 270 right now, which is pretty reasonable considering I've been running this for 2 months. So that I think that's pretty good. Like I think that's for what I describe as a little niche market and kind of tiny little thing. And I'm in a small market in Canada, which isn't really a big focal point for Turo. I'm not in the GTA. I'm kind of out in the boonies a little bit. I think that's a pretty good number at 270. I'm pretty happy about that, to be honest with you. Got a couple thumbs up, which was kind of nice. I like that too. Not a whole lot of comments, so I haven't really received anything along that line or feedback. So again, maybe you're just listening to the video kind of in the background. You're kind of going, okay, well, yeah, I'm doing Turo too and recapping. Maybe that's it. Or maybe you're thinking about it. You're on the fence post going, well, maybe it'd be a great way to pay off some of my car or add a little addition to it. It's not on the single cars. Like if you're doing a 1 or a 2, you have that in the family type deal. It's not gazillions of dollars. So if you're watching the YouTube stuff from the States, they kind of make it out to be it's the end all be all. You're going to make $2,000-$3,000 a month. I don't think that's the case in the Canadian market. I think it's about half. So I think a good power host or a good Turo person out there that's been running consistently and has decent reviews and hasn't had a lot of vehicles out of service, I think you're looking at top end is $1,500 for a premium vehicle. I think once you start taking things away, like you go, okay, well, now you're in that 8 or 10-year-old vehicle. Maybe you're taking $200 out of that. Maybe you're cutting it off by 30%. You're not going to get the rental that you would, but you're not getting the car payment either. So you kind of weigh one with the other. You kind of go, do I buy a top end car and plunk $30,000 or $40,000 on something used that is, desirable, and I'm going to get $200 or $300 bookings on it on a daily? Your insurance is going to be through the roof on it. So your personal insurance, it's going to be through the roof. The other one is maintenance. On some of these higher end cars are insane. So just be aware of that. Typically, like if I've got to put a set of tires on, well, my Outlander, I did. So the Outlander, to go down to Hamilton, which is kind of the mecca or the central area for buying what I describe as premium quality, slightly used tires at a reasonable price. That ran me about $500 with install and balance and everything for a set of tires that were at about 80 or 90%, which is pretty decent. And they were the original brand and make that were on the vehicle to begin with. So I was pretty excited about that. So I didn't have to worry about changing fuel mileage or gear ratio or anything along that line. It's literally, those are the ones that came with the vehicle. Perfect. Done. But if I were into a high-end BMW or Mercedes or top-end product, I'd be into 18s or 20-inch tires. I know some of them are gel-filled, so they run flat technology. You're not going to find those on a used rack somewhere. You're going to have to go buy them new, and they can be $300 to $1,100 a tire. So again, those are things that you just kind of have to think about. If you're running Turo, you have to kind of think like, what would a rental agency do? And then you have to kind of back it up a little bit and go, what would a rental agency do that's like a rent-a-rack from the 80s or 90s? And that's the way I kind of play it in my mind. I go, I'm not selling premium. I'm not selling top-end stuff. I'm selling bread and butter. Your car's in the shop. You're kind of pooched. You need a vehicle. You don't care what color it is. You don't care what year it is. You don't care the brand, but you'd really like to be at $35 to $60 a day. You don't want any headaches, right? So we're talking like your blue collar guy. He just wants to get to work. We're talking about, the lady that needs to run in a kitchener because she's working, strange enough, at an insurance broker, right? Stuff like that. It's just where it's a disposable item. It's meant to be ripped off and gone, right? So no memory of it. It's one of those things. So I just want to make sure I get a car that you literally go, wow, it could be a Toyota, it could be a Honda 30 feet away. You don't know what it is. It just is a car. I think the Cruze is a lot like that. You step away, you look, and go, it looks like a Honda Civic. It looks like a Toyota Corolla. It kind of looks a little bit like a Volkswagen Jetta. It's kind of like it doesn't have a distinct body line to it. It's not like where you go, oh, yeah, it's just, and it's great. Like, I'm not knocking it for any stretch of the imagination. It's a car you look at, you kind of doesn't really cause you any scratch your head, and it's a car. Like, that's what I want. So that's my business model from that standpoint. Maybe we'll get into a discussion about that. So we're going to end the video here. Again, please subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. If I can get up to 1,000, means I can probably get a little bit of ad money. I'm not talking huge cash. It's just one of those things where it's a nice way of saying, the time I put in, that's appreciated. It's also a nice way of saying, now I got a little bit of a budget to say, well, let's upgrade the camera, right? So we look good. Let's upgrade the mic. And the mic here is actually not bad. The Blue Yeti, I have to kind of talk right into it. And I kind of drift back a little bit when I'm doing the video stuff. So I do apologize for that. But I use this for podcasting. And I was doing that up to last year. And then I managed to sell my podcast, which is an odd little occurrence, but I did. So I have the equipment for podcasting. I've never really done the video stuff. So this is why I'm doing the video stuff. But I'm going to take the audio content from all this video that I'm creating. And I'm probably going to do a little Turo Canada host podcast, which I think, I don't know if there's a market for it, but I think to myself, I'm doing this anyways. Might as well take some of the audio content down and repurpose it and go from there. And maybe if you're a Turo host, I'm thinking that maybe podcasting is more of the business side of it. At least when I've been looking for information on Turo, I went looking for podcasts, and it seems to be that it seems to be a little more focused from that standpoint. Whereas the YouTube stuff seems to be a little more flashy, special effects, fancy desk, fluorescent lights, stuff like that. Whereas here, you're getting my little spotlight, which creates a great cast of shadow, and you're getting my wonderful 3D printer. Well, I've got two of them, and you're getting my hobbies. I paint. So you're not getting a studio completion. You're just getting a shot from a desk. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit. And again, thank you very much for listening to the end. I do appreciate it. And have a pleasant and enjoyable day. Okay, let's end the stream. There we go. Hit the end button. There we go. Bye-bye.